We'll now continue Unit 3 and do the last part, which I'll call Unit 3, Part 2. There are not so many slides left on this unit. However, in this section, we are discussing pressure ulcers or pressure sores. Pressure ulcers or pressure sores are wounds that occur as a result of continued pressure on an area of the skin. And as a result of that, the skin starts to break down and you see pressure sores or pressure ulcers. There are certain areas that are at a high risk for pressure sores or pressure ulcers. And these areas are the ones that are more of a bony bony areas of the skin, like your shoulder blades, where you have bony prominence, like your elbows, your knees, your heels, ankles, and all those areas. Some of them are also like your ears, the back of your head, and in between fingers and toes. Then there are some residents or some people who are at a high risk for pressure ulcers or pressure sores. These are persons that are confined to bed or chair, because then that pressure on their bottom or on the side, if they are laying in bed, the hip area, their elbow areas, if they are not repositioned frequently, that pressure on those areas, the skin will start breaking down, and as a result, you have pressure sores or pressure ulcers. Persons that require braces, splints, braces and splints, because of that pressure from the brace or from the splint, if the braces or the splints are not relieved at least every 2 hours, they can cause pressure ulcers. Incontinency, if you have a resident laying in bed and they're incontinent for a long period of time, that moisture from the urine can cause skin breakdown. Persons that have got sensory deprivation, maybe due to the condition, their health condition, persons who have, for example, they have diabetes, so the sensation in their feet is not that great, so they can easily have pressure ulcers or pressure sores. Poor nutrition and hydration. You are not providing protein or nutrients to your skin that can cause pressure ulcers. Poor circulation, with people who have got poor circulation easily get pressure ulcers. Skin folds, because of all that moisture in the skin folds, and persons who are just feeble. Conditions that predispose pressure ulcers, like I said earlier, continual pressure, heat, moisture, and lack of cleanliness, perspiration, urine, feces on the skin, laying in urine or having feces on the skin for a long period of time. We talked about malnutrition, persons that are malnourished and dehydrated. Also, persons that are immobile or otherwise have friction and shearing. Friction and shearing is when you are moving your resident in bed and you're actually just dragging them. That would cause skin breakdown. Crumbs, buttons, or utensils. Find somebody laying in crumbs, or there's a button that is pressuring on the surface of the skin. These can cause pressure ulcers. Wrinkled and soiled sheets. We talked about soiled sheets, sore wool wrinkles. So ensure that when you make your residence bed, the sheets are nicely pulled and nicely smoothened out, because those wrinkles can cause pressure ulcers. Ill-fitting clothes and shoes, and persons that are obese. These are conditions predisposes persons to pressure ulcers. Signs and symptoms of pressure ulcers. You will see a reddish bluish discoloration, warm or hot to touch. The area is tender and painful, and then there's a burning sensation. As you can see here, the reddish bluish discoloration on the skin, that is your first sign of a pressure ulcer brewing. There are 4 stages of pressure ulcers. With stage 1, stage 1 is the redness and the bluish discoloration that you see. The skin at this point in time will be intact, but then there's that redness or bluish, and that is not relieved within like 15 to 30 minutes after removing pressure. So if that area was under pressure and you discover that it has that discoloration, however, when you relieve the pressure from that area, the color still stays the same, then that is your stage 1 of a pressure ulcer coming up. Stage 2, there is a partial skin loss involving the outer or the inner layer of the skin. The ulcer is superficial at this point in time, and it looks like a blister or a shallow crater. So that will be your stage 2. Stage 3, there is full skin loss. The skin is gone completely, involving damage or death of tissue that may extend down to the tissue that covers the muscles. The ulcer looks like a deep crater at this point in time. Then your stage 4, there is full skin loss with major destruction. There's death of the tissue and damage to the muscle and the bone or the supporting structures. Stage 4 is a very difficult ulcer to even try to cure, because there's a lot of damage that has been done. Your muscles and the bones are exposed at this point in time. You may review in your textbook, page 199, talks more into details about pressure ulcers. And this is how, visualizing the pressure ulcers, this is how they would look like in the different stages. So as you can see in stage 4, this is real big damage. However, we can prevent pressure ulcers by simply repositioning your resident. Make sure that they are clean and their skin is dry. You can also use a moisture barrier. Facilities have moisture barriers that are used on the residents, especially those that are highly prone to pressure ulcers. Keep your resident hydrated and nourished. Ensure that they are having enough to drink and they are having enough to eat. A well-nourished diet. Protect them against pressure. Make sure there's protection against pressure, protection against friction and shearing. When you are moving your resident in bed, lift and move and do not drag them on the sheets. That can easily cause skin breakdown. Wrinkle-free, clean and dry linens. Ensure that when you make your resident's bed or when you are ready to lay them in bed, that their covers are nicely pulled tight and they have no wrinkles. Lightly dust between skin fold. You can use cornstarch or unscented powder. A lot of times you will see the baby powder is used. And then just know the risk factors. Do they have any health conditions that they can easily get pressure ulcers? Persons who have diabetes, persons that are cognitively impaired, persons that soil themselves a lot. So make sure you are checking and changing your residents frequently so that they are not either laying in on soiled linens, or they have not had an accident and keep moving around like that. So pressure ulcers have occurred, so we are going to look for treatment. Air cushions for the beds are common for persons that have got pressure ulcers. Foam cushions, and all these images here show you ways and means of treating pressure ulcers. You have to get them off of those ulcers, because the more pressure you put on, if they already have the ulcers, the worse they become. So all these items here are some of the things that you will see in order to treat pressure ulcers. So this marks the end of Unit 3. Like I said, there were not that many slides left, but otherwise in your textbook, you can review chapter 13. It talks a lot about pressure ulcers and all the other skills that we will be covering in the classroom. Okay, good luck to you guys. Thank you.